The Let's Talk podcast was inspired by the MISD's Leadership and Empowerment Team, or LET for short. Our mission is to ensure that all students, regardless of race, culture, or gender, have an equitable learning environment so they can become the leaders they want to be. And now, here are your hosts, Daniel Norwood and Ted Madden.
Welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk podcast, where we talk about how the district is trying to make sure all students get the same chance to succeed, regardless of their background.
Today, we visit with Jennifer Morris, the Director of Professional Learning for the school district. Jennifer is also an integral part of the LET committee, one of the first.
So we'll introduce ourselves like we always do, with a bit of background information to help you understand our perspectives. I'm Ted Madden, video producer for the district and a 47-year-old white man.
I'm Daniel Norwood, social studies coordinator and a 38-year-old black man.
I'm Jennifer Morris, and I am a 41-year-old white woman, 41 and fabulous.
You betcha.
Embracing those 40s.
Let's get your background so we kind of know where you started and how you got here.
This is actually my 20th year at Mesquite ISD, which is just unbelievable to me. I started as a 22-year-old in Mesquite ISD, knowing not one person in this district or in this city. Moved to this town from a small Texas town that had zero diversity, to Floyd Elementary, one of our Balch Springs elementary schools, and taught there various elementary grades for 13 years, then moved into the curriculum department where I worked for a few years, and now I'm in our professional learning department where I get to oversee really everything that has to do with our new teachers, our mentor programs, our new teacher programs, and then support all of the work that our department does, like ETIP and instructional coaching and just supporting teachers, which I love. I feel like I have the dream job.
The best job. I think
Yes.
I think our first and second year teachers really appreciate a lot of the innovations that you've done in that role too.
It's exciting work that we're doing. I'm really excited about our district really being intentional about saying, hey, we've got to come alongside our first-year teachers that are new to this profession and really doing everything that we can to set them up for success, not just in our district, but in the profession for the long haul. We want them to get past that magic 5-year mark where we can lose teachers, and we want them to not only just survive in our profession, we want them to thrive, we want them to be successful and innovative. And so I'm just excited about the work that our department does with our new teachers and getting them started on the right foot.
You bring up, the first and second year teachers and sometimes that 5-year mark, and I know that's significant. It's kind of like marriage. If you make 5 years, you can go for a lifetime. But when you talk about first and second year teachers, what are some of the challenges that they face that you've seen?
Absolutely, it's a very unique experience to step into a classroom from all of the different programs that our teachers come from, and so really, but even if they come from different teacher education programs, there's a lot of similar challenges that they face. And so some of the big ones that we spend a lot of time talking about is classroom management, building relationships, designing effective instruction, working with parents and families, just a lot of the things that until you're in there in the classroom with your own students in front of you, you're like, oh, these are my students now, and I have to navigate these things without another adult in the room. And how does that play out for me? And how do I do that without losing my mind? And how do I take care of myself and my family in the process of learning all of these things? And they really get to hear from each other. In our program, the thing I love about our program is that it spends a lot of time giving them time with each other to talk about what their shared experiences are. And so we laugh, we cry, we talk, we cry. we get to learn a lot together, but there's some really beautiful relationships and bonds that are built within our program. One thing that's really near and dear to my heart being a part of this program, like I said, coming from a small town, I went to a small Texas college, also really coming into a place that looked so differently from where I grew up. And when I came in 2001, just watching as our demographics changed and our students' the diversity really changed, being a part of learning what does it look like to be an effective teacher to all students, and really having to dig in and do some work that wasn't provided in my teacher ed program, and taking the time to really think and be reflective about what do those processes look like in my classroom for all students to be successful.
As I get older, I like the phrase, if I only knew then what I know now, more and more.
Yes.
You think about that from your own standpoint. If you knew as a first-year teacher what you know now, how much more effective could you have been?
Absolutely. And the thing about being a first-year teacher is that you don't know what you don't know until you're there and you're like, oh, gosh. And there are so many times. And the more I learn, especially in this department that I work in, and I love being a part of our Mesquite ISD professional learning department. Again, dream job, because I get to learn about teaching and see teachers in action all the time and collaborate with teachers. And I think about that constantly, like, oh my goodness, I would go back to the classroom and be a better teacher now because of all of the things that I've gotten to learn from other teachers in this district. And so it's really a great thing to be a part of, especially in this work that we're doing around diversity and equity for all students.
You know, Jennifer, we go way back.
Yes.
The curriculum department.
Yes.
And I think, if I'm right, the first year that we took kids to the rodeo, you said to me, I have to get down there in the bull pit, the shark tank or something at the Mesquite Rodeo. Yes. And I said right then, all right, yeah, she's...
Listen, I'm all in. I don't want to be someone that sits on the sidelines. I want to be in the mix. And, you know, being a part of whatever our district does with students is always going to be something I sign up for.
Yep.
Because, honestly, leaving the classroom was one of the hardest decisions I ever made in my life, because I loved my students and their families, and that work was really personal to me. And so after a lot of prayer and a lot of like, oh, how can I leave these Floyd families and these kids that I love so much, just with the heart and the intention of, man, if I can come alongside other teachers and help them with the students that are in front of them, or encourage them in the great work that they're doing, then I will make that shift. But it was a hard call, because I love working with students. I love being in the classroom, and I miss it almost every day.
Mm-hmm. Quite a few of our guests have said that. You get a sense of the feel of the heart of educators, that we miss that part.
And we signed up for this gig for our kids.
We did.
Right.
We did. Jennifer, I've said it before. You've played such a vital role in keeping the work of the LET Committee moving, helping to structure the dialogue and the conversations that we had as a committee. Tell us how you got involved. Who called you?
I would like to remind you that it was you that indeed called me that day, and little did I know what was on the other end of that line, what was coming. But I say that jokingly, but honestly, I am so humbled and honored to be a part of this work. I was thinking just about it this morning, about I can't think of very many committees that have been as life-impacting and life-changing to me personally as the work of this committee. And being a part of this work is transformational to me and to my heart as well. And so, yes, it was a big fun conversation at the beginning when you called and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing, and we want you to be a part of it." And it took me, I think, all of 1 second to say, "Yes, absolutely, sign me up. I am all in, and however I can help." And support the work that we're doing in this committee. And so really getting to be a part of just helping facilitate the conversations and bringing people to the table to listen and to learn and to keep the work moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say, just Jennifer and I, it's kind of been a journey because I know with our initial conversation, it was early in the summer, and so there was a lot going on. And when I reached out to you about joining the LET Committee and helping us move the conversation forward, we had our own conversations about race,
right?
And we were able to process. And one of the things that we're doing now is leading a book study on So You Want to Talk About Race, but we've really had our own past probably 4 months of So You Want to Talk About Race conversations.
And that has been such a great side product of this committee work. Is just reinforcing what, we all know, is that relationships matter, conversations matter, taking the time to engage with people and just talk and listen and hear stories and share stories just really are so impactful and so important. And it has been great to see that transition into the conversations that we're having in our book study that we're leading. And I love that we started our first book study at our administration building with the leaders around the building that have signed up and said, yes, I want to engage in that conversation. I want to engage in the learning. And we've just had some really beautiful conversations during that time. And we're looking forward to leading those. I mean, it's
continuing.
an ongoing, like we're going to continue that as we move forward in our admin building.
As the Director of Professional Learning,
Yes.
and as a leading member of the LET Committee, how will you, or how have you incorporated what LET is trying to do with how you're doing the professional learning?
Right. It's been a key part of the work that the committee wants to see happen. And what I loved about this committee, first of all, the group that is in the room. When you think about committee work, it's like, oh, committee, like, oh, that sounds like so much fun.
And you
like
said
a Zoom
yes.
call.
Exactly. Like, and I said, yes, sure, sign me up. You're like, what am I signing up for? But the committee has been such a beautiful thing to just be a part of and listen to all of the viewpoints and the experiences of the people that are in the room, especially our students that are in the room. But early on, we knew one of the key takeaways from the conversations that we were having, and we were talking about a lot of possibilities and just a lot of reflections and a lot of feedback, and it just kept coming to the surface, like, how are we going to engage our teachers and our staff members in these conversations and in this work? And what does that look like? And how do we do that in a way that is not a policy mandate, but really engages people's hearts and minds for the purpose of impacting students? And so the professional learning piece really came to the top in, like, okay, we want to make sure new hires that are brand new to Miskey, we are including now new learning pieces that are around diversity and equity and teaching students in the best practices during our new teacher camp in the summer. So if you're new to Mesquite ISD, that's going to be a part of your journey in new teacher camp. Then it's going to be a part of our new teacher academy as a new teacher in the district. We're really excited. We've also developed, created, and included new professional learning options for people to choose from our catalog for this fall. Lots of things that they can sign up for to be a part of, which will also be included in the spring. We'll have new options and new presenters that are going to be developing, creating new courses to take then. And so those classes are already filling up. I mean, we've got wait lists on some of our book studies and classes that are around this topic. And that just reaffirms to us, like, people want to engage. They want to really get in on the conversations and be a part of moving forward and being actively involved in what we're doing. And so we're excited about the things that we're offering. Also, Debbie Tanton and I are really excited about offering support to any campuses that are like, hey, we want to dive into the resources and we want to get some things going on our campus, but how do we do that? Like, how do we facilitate a book study conversation, or how do we design some professional learning around these topics? And we are, like, here for that. We are all in on helping support campuses and leaders who are like, hey, can you come help us out and help us design some of those opportunities for our teachers? And so we're just available to support, but we also are designing and creating and providing opportunities for people to sign up as well.
I like concrete examples. So
Okay.
let's say I'm a new teacher.
Right.
And, I come to the professional learning. How do you teach me to better understand students who come from different cultures than my own?
Right. So I should have said, and when I worked in the curriculum department, I was a reading specialist. So I am always going to, be, celebrating all the books, all the book things. As a new teacher, I would really encourage you to connect with some really great resources. And speaking of resources, I feel like we are doing a really great job of bringing resources. I think you guys talked about this with Amy Ann, our new resource page. Honestly, that is the first place I would say. I was like, I really would say start with our resource website and choose one thing. Choose one thing. And maybe as a new teacher, honestly, you may not have time for a book right now. I mean, we're in the middle of a global pandemic and virtual teaching. So you may not have time to fully commit to that right now at this moment. But you could listen to a podcast. You could read an article. You could watch a YouTube video. There are things there that would meet lots of different needs and levels. And so I would really encourage them to start somewhere in that resource list. And then as a new teacher, and I try to tell them this with all topics, you can't do everything the first year. You can't sign up for every course. But because we have a really robust list of courses, choose one. Choose one that really resonates with what you teach, because some of our courses are specific to what you teach, what curriculum you teach, and some of them are topic specific. And I would say choose one that really resonates with where you are in the process of thinking through and reflecting on some of these things. And so I think we're doing a really good job in our work of providing a lot of options. And I think our committee is really committed to continually bringing things in front of people that will be very diverse in where they can plug in and what it looks like to connect to those things.
You mentioned the resource list a couple of times. I wanted to direct people to our Leadership and Empowerment Team webpage. You can start by going to mesquiteisd.org. That's our district website. Near the top, you'll see some tabs. Click on the Community tab and then Leadership and Empowerment Team. And once you get to that page, about halfway down on the right in gold text, you'll see Resources to Promote Equity, and that's where you'll find it.
I know you mentioned for the first and second year teachers to kind of pick one thing that really would be impactful for them from the resource list, which I love, because I know as new teachers, it's like you want to be great at everything the day you come in. And when you're not, sometimes they feel like failure, which is not what we want. We want people to feel like they always have an area of growth. So can you talk about, like, from the things that we did in the LET committee and what we heard from students, what would be one thing that you think could make an impact?
And this is not unique to this work. This is, I think, the power of teaching is in building relationships. When we listened to the students on our committee share and speak, that was some of the most impactful moments of our committee work. And honestly, it was hard for me to not see the faces of my former students in those students' faces. And I have students, previous students that I've started college this year, and I thought about their faces as I was listening to those students share their stories. And I thought about Jadarian and Josue and Alexis and Deshandria and Michaela, who are all pursuing college and education this semester for the first time. And I thought, what would their stories be? What would their experiences be in MISD? And have we done all that we can do? At the end of the day, can we say that we've done all that we can do to set them up for success and for getting to choose whatever their future looks like? Have we set them up for that? And all I could just keep hearing from them was how impactful it was that they had the people that they had relationships with on campuses that they could talk to and be honest about things with, or when they didn't have that, what that sounded like. But I would say building relationships, hearing your students' stories, hearing the stories of their families, changes you as a teacher, and it impacts you and what you're doing in the classroom, or it should. It should impact you and what you're doing in the classroom. So I would say building relationships, number one.
I know we talked a lot about safe spaces in our LET committee, and what you bring up there, I think is a unique insight for anybody who's listening who wasn't on the LET team. But I know the space that we set up, we wanted the students to have a voice,
Right.
and I felt like over time, maybe not in the first 15, 20 minutes because they were feeling us out, but
Right.
I felt like over time, by the second meeting that we had as well, they were telling us things that for some of us was a surprise.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it really, I think it reiterated to all of us in the room and was a takeaway. We have got to do this more. On our campuses, in our district, we have got to provide and create safe spaces for students to share their stories and to share their experiences. And I know there were principals in the room that were already brainstorming, man, how can I get my kids on my campuses talking and giving us feedback about where our blind spots are or where the gaps are. And it's just started a lot of conversation just because their voices were so powerful. Their insight was so meaningful and really is driving the work that we're doing.
So let me ask both of you this as members of the LET committee. There are probably, and I know there are topics that teachers will not broach with students because they're too controversial. So where's the line? Because we're talking about racial, cultural, gender, which includes religion. We're a lot of issues that you're not supposed to talk about because they are potentially controversial. So how do you teach them where the line is?
Well, one of the things in social studies, it's a unique topic because everything's controversial. You know, I mean, we're talking about elections. We're talking about policies going back in history. We're talking about slavery. There's so many things that are controversial in the general public to discuss right now. But we have to really set our kids up with the processes and the words to be able to have that conversation with other people. And I think as we talk about students being being engaged in civics, I think for us, the big part, and we've trained on this in social studies and will continue to, is to teach our kids how to have that dialogue where it's productive. And so it's not avoid the controversial topic. It's how can you talk about a topic that you're very passionate about in a way that speaks to other people? And how can you convince them in a way that, we have a playing field where we're listening not to respond, but we're listening to learn. And when you start to frame around that type of dialogue, I think, you see students who are ready to go into leadership because when they respond, it's not pure emotion. It's, hey, this is how we feel and this is what we think will change it. And so I think as one of our goals in the LET committee is developing student leaders, but it's how they use their voice. And so, for us, I think that's a big part of it in the classroom is don't avoid it, lean into it, but give them the structure and the words.
And we've talked a lot about providing support for teachers and how to navigate that. Like we know we need to do a better job of providing professional learning and support for what does it look like to be a teacher in those situations and how does that unfold. And we're working on how to support teachers in that kind of work.
I remember as a teacher in a social studies classroom, I taught U.S. history for some years at North Mesquite, and we were talking about, I think it was World War II, and it was Japanese internment. And, one of the questions was it fair for a Japanese citizen? And for our students, it was a really passionate conversation between the two groups, two sides of it. But again, this is an issue that was 80 years ago. But our students were passionate about it because some thought, hey, this we should have justified, and then others thought, no, people were citizens. This was totally wrong. But again, as a teacher, I had to be able to navigate that discussion for them and allow them to have that space because, ultimately, as we look at a lot of national issues now, sometimes the issue is not that we're not having the conversation, it's the way that we have it. And so like Jennifer said, the training piece I think is huge because as a teacher, that allows you to say, hey, guys, we're going into a controversial topic, even putting them on the opposing side of their view so that they have to research, hey, what is the other side actually saying? What is this side saying? And I think that sets them up for being able to listen to two sides of an issue, which is a challenge right now, I think, for a lot of people.
I think you said it well when you said when you're having these types of conversations, listening to listen, not listening to respond. Get your comeback ready.
Yeah.
That's right. Been one of the key words I feel like that we have talked about in our work. Honestly, I feel like there's a couple of words that have come to the surface. For me, I know, and we've shared in our conversations about this and what our heart is and our purpose is in the work that we're doing and some outcomes that we hope to see. Giving people the opportunity in our district and our community to listen, to hear the stories, to hear about the work that we're doing. And this podcast is one of those ways to do that. Then giving them opportunities to learn, whether it's on their own or collaboratively with other people. And let's be honest, right now is a heavy time for a lot of us. And I mean, there are hard things happening and hard things going on. And so sometimes these topics and this work feels heavy and hard and like, I don't know if I can get into this on my own. And so providing opportunities like, hey, here's where you can come alongside some other people and be in this together, I think is a really great time for that, to be in this with someone else and learning with others. And so giving people the chance to listen to stories and hear the work that is going on, the opportunities to learn, and then not just stay with the learning and not to just say, oh, I learned a lot of really great things, but then to lead in your classroom, to lead on your campuses, to lead in our district out in putting some action behind the things that you're learning. And so those are the real outcomes that we're hopeful for, and all of that covered in the love for our students, the why. The love for our students covers all of that.
Thanks for the conversation.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Glad to be a part of the work.
That's MISD Director of Professional Learning, Jennifer Morris. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast so you get new episodes as they're released. Just search for the Let's Talk podcast wherever you get your podcasts. For Daniel Norwood, I'm Ted Madden. Let's talk again next week.